Anybody? Okay, the recording is started. And when you look on your computer, it should tell you that it's being recorded. Might as well turn those off.
Yeah, it says it's being recorded.
Actually needs the recording to generate the minutes. Yeah, it's 7:30. I'd like to call the special meeting, which is preliminary meeting of the zoning commission tonight. January 27th, it's 7:30. And I'll call the rolls since our zoning assistant isn't here this evening. Start with Louis Greenwell here. Tom Need.
Here.
I'm Mike Kabler. Joni Manson here. Brittany Hopper. Brittany's absent. And alternate Alan Zako. Alan?
Here.
All right, since Brittany is not present this evening, Alan, you'll be serving on the board as a voting member. So I don't anticipate that there'll be there could be some action tonight, but just so that you're aware, you will be able to vote tonight in addition to having part in the discussion. All right. Let me go ahead and introduce any other officials who are here. We have one, Jim Steelsmith, who is our Director for Economic Development. Mike Cannon, who's the Director of Zoning and Development, is not present here this evening. And our zoning assistant, Ashley Zaruba, is absent as well. If we have any one joining us via Zoom, we are having some technical issues with the equipment, but we're recording, and we do know that people can log in because we have a member on the commission here who logged in. So that's not necessarily a problem outside of the fact that we can't see anything with our monitors tonight. Let me go ahead and explain the procedure in terms of the purpose of tonight's meeting. The preliminary meeting is established as an opportunity for people interested in rezoning their property to a subdivision or to a planned district to have informal discussions with the zoning commission, and they are encouraged to do so. And also encouraged to have conversations with Delaware County Regional Planning Commission prior to a formal submission of the zoning application. The purpose for such consultation is to exchange information and to provide guidance to the potential applicant that will assist in the preparation of the application materials. No statement by a township official at these preliminary meetings shall be considered to be legally binding commitment. No decisions regarding the potential rezoning are made during preliminary meetings. Preliminary meetings are open to the public and are intended to assist the potential applicant. While public comment may be permitted at the discretion of the chairperson, such comment is limited to the topic under discussion and is offered to help the potential applicant complete the application materials. Comments regarding the suitability of a zoning change are not appropriate for preliminary meetings. Potential applicants are encouraged to consider constructive public comment when revising their plans. The zoning commission will make no decisions regarding the proposed development during a preliminary meeting, and none should be inferred from comments made during the meeting. During the course of the meeting this evening, this will be the procedure that's followed, which is listed in the agenda for the meeting. potential applicant, we will be asking you to present your proposal. Commission members will be provided the opportunity to comment and or ask questions. Public who are present, either in person or on Zoom, may ask questions and comment, but they must be recognized by the chair before speaking. Only one person may speak at a time. Speaker must state their name and address. If present in person, they must come to the podium, be brief and factual. Do not repeat what has already been stated. Please do not interrupt a speaker. Do not carry on conversations with anyone while an individual is speaking. If a group wishes to be heard, please have a spokesperson for the group. Doesn't appear that we're going to have any members of the public present this evening in person. So far, Louis, you have anyone joining besides you? No? Okay. At this point then, let's move forward and I'll ask Mr. Messer if you will move forward, and Mr. Scott Messer, members of the commission don't recall, Mr. Messer's been here once before, and his client is, and he's represented is Mario Capaccio. So with that, Scott, go ahead.
Thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity to come have this preliminary meeting and discuss the project that we're trying to get rezoned here. So thank you for your attentiveness and your willingness to meet. Just a brief history. Essentially, Mario has had this property since 2019. So for many years, he's been using this property in the same way that he's using it now. He purchased the property for storage of his concrete business equipment. We intended right after purchasing it to add to the storage building that was already in existence on the property, which he did, added a 5,000, I believe 5,600 or so square feet building, to the property. He obtained zoning approval and permits that he needed to build that building and has been operating his business for the last several years. Just came to his attention from Mike, your zoning person, that he received a sort of a out of compliance notice saying that his property was not zoned correctly. That was a surprise to him because he'd been using the property for storing his concrete business for that period of time. So he brought me in and we decided in consultation that the best course of action would be to try to, Mario's a good neighbor. He wants to do right by his property. So we decided changing it to a planned commercial district was the best option to sort of validate how he's using this property. So there's no new construction being proposed. Actually, nothing's changing in the way he's been using the property for several years. Nevertheless, we wanted to, comply and make sure that everything was above board on the property. No house has ever existed on this AR1 parcel. As far as we know, it's always been the one storage building and now the extra storage building that Mario built back in 2019. We've submitted a proposed development plan that you all have in front of you. It's got a lot of details that I just went over, but it also mentions exactly what he's storing on the property. There's currently about 6 trucks, 4 larger trucks and 2 smaller flatbed trucks, 2 Bobcats that are stored inside the larger storage building and the other storage building. There's also a storage container at the rear of the property, and some concrete forms that he uses for concrete foundation installation that are stored right behind the larger building. Other than general office work during the day, no business is conducted at the property, merely storage of the trucks and equipment. There's no customers, no sales, nothing like that. I've included the basic hours of operation there. All of the setbacks and parking, there's just a couple of employees, and there's a tremendous amount of large gravel space that you can see on the site plan. He has a lot of landscaping and buffering already on the property. Security is monitored with security cameras. There's a heavy duty security gate and fencing at the entrance to the property. Security lighting, facing downward, lighting the areas around the building, one on the east side, one on the south side. There's no signage on the property, nothing new is being proposed. No new construction, as I mentioned before. So all of his utilities and sanitary and fire and drainage have been existing and approved already in the past. The one controlled entrance is off of Center Village Road. There's a handful of employees, like I said, who park their cars there, but virtually no impact on traffic by the proposed use. I've attached all the neighboring properties, the schools, parks, locations of all those information. And most of the other things in the common development plan are not applicable because of the fact that we're not producing anything new. We're not building anything new at all. So a lot of the specific statements around development standards and bonds and things like that are relevant. So I think really what we would like to accomplish tonight is to understand, what obstacles might be in front of us, to get this rezoning approved and what information. About the only thing we haven't turned in preliminarily is the survey, which, can be kind of expensive. And before we, move forward with a detailed survey of the property, we wanted to have this meeting to kind of understand, if there's some other obstacles that we might need to do before we get to that. Not anything else that I missed. Oh, we do have there is a third storage building that was in prelim, has existed the whole time. It was not being used right now. But looks like it maybe was used for some animals at some point, maybe goats or something like that. It's not being used now, but it's existing. So we just
Okay, excuse me one second.
Exactly what's existing.
I just realized that there's not a mic sitting on your table there. Would you take the one that's got the longer cord, Louis, and put it over there? So we want to make sure that you're getting picked up. I think you probably are.
But just in case, we'll just have you
This'll-
repeat everything.
Just
There,
redo the
yeah,
whole
make
thing.
it-
Things else that Louis has one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we got it. Plenty. Well, that one, it won't go any further. Put this one over here for Tom. All right.
Enough of both of us.
Maybe Alan needs it.
Yeah.
Not yet. All right.
I do all enunciate.
Okay. I'm sorry, Scott, I interrupted you, but.
No,
go right
I was
ahead.
asking Maury if you had any other questions, and the only thing he was commenting on was that in my description of what's been existing on the property for some time, there's the two main storage buildings, but there is a small, looks like it was used for animals at some point, building in the back. Not being used right now, but it is there. And just want to be clear about everything that's on the property. As
And
I said, it's
That is on
on the
this
site
drawing.
plan. Yes. Mhm. The property is largely buffered. I mean, the landscaping on the, as you drive into the property on the right-hand side where most of the houses back up to this parcel, there's probably a 10-foot berm with pine trees and fencing, and there's a lot of buffering all around the property that exists currently. So in terms of, we're not proposing any extra landscaping unless, it was determined that that would be helpful.
Well, we don't actually have a view of the landscaping, so we don't know. It would be helpful to have more, or we don't have any idea of what's planted there.
I looked at it online,
All this stuff should have,
but there's no picture here. I just happened to bring it up on my computer at home.
yeah,
But
but
it
a development
was-
plan should have landscaping details.
Oh, yeah, I understand. I'm just saying, there is something there, and I saw that there was a mound, which you've also mentioned in your plan here, that the mound's there.
Yeah.
Mario, did you construct the mound, or was it there when you bought the property?
It was already there. It was already there. I stand a little bit longer.
Okay. All right, commission members?
I
Yeah.
think for our standpoint, well, like I said, if it would be helpful, the main issue is there's really nothing occurring on the property. The trucks leave at first thing in the morning and come back at the end of the day, and
Yeah,
that's it.
that's not the question. The idea of moving to a planned commercial district, then that property will be a planned commercial district. And we need a detailed plan of what is happening there, and what will continue to happen there, so that if Mr. Capocchio decides to sell his property, anybody buying that property would have to follow the exact specifications in your plan. So we need details, like on your survey that you're going to have done. Lay out where the mound is, what kind of trees are on it. If you need to plant more trees, you'll need photographs of the landscaping. We'll need photographs of all of the buildings, all elevations of the buildings. And then that will have to be described in text as well.
Let's see.
Ashley's.
Are these included with what you have?
What's it in my packet?
Well, they were submitted, that's, here's the landscaping.
Yeah, there's a number of,
Yeah, that's a-
there's a number of pictures, but I'm still taking notes, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's at least part of it. I mean, that's part of the mound.
And are those trees on it or behind it, or?
It's a big oak, some.
It's on the top of the mound.
Mhm.
Some of them are behind it, it looks like.
There's both.
And some of them have gaps.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
So yeah, a description of those. And probably pictures now that the leaves are off would be helpful. For each of the buildings, need all elevations. See, I made some
so
notes.
these
on
are
it.
the existing buildings. Now, which of these, which one of these two is the newer one?
That's
This
new.
is a new one.
This is the newer one?
One above it is the
So
one that was on.
this is the one that was built
2019.
after you purchased the property, correct?
And that's 2 stories?
Two
Yes.
stories, she said. Is it 2 stories?
Yeah, yes.
It does not have a second story, but it's very tall.
Okay. So for the fire department, it would be considered 2 stories.
Have a little storage area on the top.
Yeah.
I would assume so.
Okay.
So the interior of the building is currently then just open from the main floor to the ceiling. There's no loft and no second floor built there. Even though we're showing some windows over here. for
Yeah,
some-
where the window is, I have like a little loft, where it's a little.
Oh, so
storage.
there's a loft in that portion of the building.
Yeah, that's where, yeah, where I have some tools, put over there.
And then this building is the one that was there originally when you purchased the property. All right. Well, now going back, I'll go back
You
to,
want to start at the beginning and go?
yeah,
through?
that's exactly what I was gonna say.
Okay. Go ahead.
The proposed size location, we'll go through the document here now, section by section.
Okay.
In terms of trying to address that and giving you feedback. So we've got the site and location identified here.
Mike, can I?
Go ahead.
Break in for a minute. On the document that's called the development plan, it calls out a parcel ID which ends in 01400. If you have that. Most of your other documents call out a parcel ID which ends in 01700.
I see that discrepancy.
It's a
Zero-
small thing, but it's,
014 or 017.
Mhm.
I think the 17 is correct,
I do too. I'll fix that.
because that's the one that I used when I looked it up online.
Probably just a typo. Apologize for that.
okay, I just wanted to make sure
Yep,
that.
I'll
that
fix
was a
that.
Small thing, but it's gotta be right.
Yeah, I got you.
Sorry, Mike. You want to
Okay,
pick up?
so in the use of the property in number 2, where you talk about the additional building was approved through Harlem Township zoning. What you probably got was a building permit, not a zoning permit.
Well, I wasn't here at the time, but
Oh.
records show that there was a certificate of zoning approval that Delaware County requires when you're building a new, they want you to show that you got zoning approval. And the architect has assured me that he got zoning approval through Harlem Township and then went and got building permits from Delaware County.
Because it was zoned as AR1, they would have assumed that was a barn that you were going to be building.
An accessory structure that's an acceptable
Yeah.
building that you can put in an AR1 zoning.
Yeah, that would have been something granted by the zoning inspector at the time.
That's correct.
It would not have come to the zoning commission. Three
I
of us,
requested,
It
I
wasn't a
requested
change.
records from
Okay.
here to show me what was applied for.
Okay.
Like, was there something misleading about the application, or did it make it clear that it was for storage of equipment, or like what was exactly signed off on by the zoning inspector? And no one here seems to be able to locate the copies of that. So if they can find copies, that would be probably helpful to all of us to
Yeah.
understand,
Matt was the zoning inspector then? Okay.
okay, I couldn't remember when he had started,
Yeah, I don't remember
so.
either.
It was at the time after John Trainer left and Matt came, or was it?
It was well after
Gap.
Trainer. There was others.
Anyway, I know.
Well, Thunderbrink was.
Okay, well, the zoning, the permit should be on file. But what you're saying, Scott, is they have not been able to find it?
they have not
Have
been
you
able to
been-
locate anything from what was applied for zoning. Zoning was granted, zoning
County
approval was
might have-
granted. I just don't know exactly what for.
It wouldn't have been zoning that was granted. It was a building permit that was,
Zoning certificate.
Yeah.
So he could get a building.
That's correct.
Yeah, but there was no request to change the zoning.
There was no request to change
It was
zoning.
just a request to,
was AR.
it's our typical application to build a structure,
build it out.
to put a structure, right?
Yes, and I do know from the from the architect, he intimated to me that he had to bring the plans, the actual drawings of the barn that you're looking at that was built in 2019. He brought them here. And if it was Matt or whoever the zoning person was, had to stamp those drawings as compliant with the current zoning,
The setbacks and
the setbacks and,
And the height.
and
Yeah.
all of those things.
all that stuff.
And
Would have
the
been,
building itself could very well have been compliant with the requirements, because
that,
like Joni is just pointing out, he would be granting the permit for the building to be constructed, not the use of the building. That would not have been a part of the permitting process, other than, I don't know whether there was a form used at that time, but there is a form that's used to indicate whether it's being used for agriculture purposes or not. Mario, did you recall, did you pay a fee?
honestly, I don't remember.
Okay,
It's so long I remember. I used to have this architect, because of my English, I let him handle it. So.
well, the only reason I'm asking that, it would be potentially a fee would be paid if it's for uses other than for agriculture
you could tell by
purposes.
the fee what type of application it was.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, and honestly, we don't have to, like, I bring that up mostly just to highlight that Mario really has never
It wa-
tried to not comply with,
I think I understand what you're
Yeah.
saying. It wasn't an intent on his
No.
part to hide anything.
never
If
has
that were the
been. I
case,
mean,
he wouldn't be
there's
here.
no, I mean, the idea is when he built this accessory structure, I mean, there's no house there. So there was no fake, like, hey, I live here and I'm gonna store my tractor in here and my lawnmower and I mean, he doesn't live there and there was no house to live on. So I guess when he applied and got permission, to build the structure and he's been using it for 6 years, I only bring that up to say, we're just trying to
Sure.
you know, be compliant and use the property the way he's been using it. And admittedly, if we're unsuccessful at figuring this out, it is quite a hardship on someone who's operated this way for several years to now have to figure out what does he do at this point. He's invested a lot of money and a lot of business into this storage of his equipment there, so.
But you do bring up an interesting point about what was there when he bought the property and the use that it's been put to since then. I think in some of your documentation, you talk about there's 6 or 7 or 8 contiguous properties, residential properties.
There are.
And when I looked at those on the county website a few months ago, so information may be slightly out of date. All of the contiguous properties, other than one, were occupied by the current owners before Mario bought the property and built the additional building. All of the residences existed before Mario purchased the property.
Mhm.
And I think in my mind, that's an important distinction, that these people didn't move in after Mario had built the storage building. They were already there. Just something to consider as we move forward.
Sure.
I show Garabrandt in the back, 1998, Fickle, 2018, Keeving, 1986, Mitchell, 1980 and 2014, Grimm, 1996, Mills, 2020. It's the only one who came in a year after you purchased the property. And then an ATLR, LLC, 2014. And on the far side, Richards, 1996. So they're all existing residences. There's no existing businesses surrounding that property.
Did you find?
Well, I'm sorry, just to respond to
Yeah.
that, the one building, the storage building that he inherited that was already there has been there since 1988, I believe. So,
And the question, I guess, would be, what was it being used for?
It was for business.
I don't know.
Someone runs a business over there.
somebody was, I don't know exactly what he did and what he was storing there,
Yeah.
but that's what he was
But
doing. as
was
well.
one of these, like the 1988 person, was that all their property and it was since subdivided into these other residences and these other long
I haven't done a search.
things?
I
This
didn't,
one?
yeah, I didn't,
I think that's been
Yeah.
like that for a while.
yeah, well, Garabrandt's been there for ages.
Yeah.
Whether this was originally his property, I'd have to go back and look at the original deeds to see who subdivided all of this and how.
Yeah,
that
we didn't
developed.
go back that far to do that. I know that Mario bought the building from an individual who was using that first barn to store his business equipment.
Yeah.
And so
So that
Was
takes
it a
me to,
concrete
I'm sorry.
business?
I don't know what the business was with the guy who bought it
I
from.
think
Landscaping?
No, moving door to like a dozers.
Bulldozers.
Weird. Okay.
So I guess either you, Mario, or Scott, it would be helpful to me to have some description of what the business is now. What the use is now, whether it's simply moving trucks in and out,
That's it.
or whether you're storing fuel.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, this
gravel.
one paragraph does kind of describe the equipment that you're storing in there. But you do need to specify whether or not you have like gas pumps or any other hazardous material in storage.
whether there's gravel in storage,
Yeah,
dry concrete, whatever, what,
Dry concrete, anything like that?
On the floor?
No, like, are you storing bags of
No.
concrete or materials? It's just all
No,
equipment, isn't it?
material, I do foundation, whatever I need, like a wall ties, rebar.
that's stored on site.
Yeah.
And all of that is being stored inside the
The
buildings?
rebar outside,
Rebar's outside.
they're
Mhm.
20 foot long, it's close to the concrete panels.
So far as the concrete then that's being used, you don't mix any of the
No.
concrete. It's all purchased through a concrete company. They deliver it in trucks. Your primary business is building the foundations, sounds like, And that's why you have the concrete forms for foundation forms. Okay.
So if you could locate those sorts of things on the survey that you're gonna have done too, so we know where the storage areas are, that would also be useful.
Great.
And I think you heard Joni mention earlier, she was asking for some additional details regarding what this landscaping over here that you have somewhat depicted on this drawing. In
Yeah,
terms of exactly what's there.
Yeah, that should also be on your scaled survey.
Yes,
But
it
also
will
there will
be.
be-
I think the survey will be a lot more detailed, and then we'll supply
Yeah, and they should be
as
like
many
11,
photographs as we can.
that'd be good.
Um,
And those, the surveys and maps and stuff are supposed to be on 11 by 17 size paper for the application itself.
Yep.
Okay. Then the text for the landscaping and buffering and stormwater and stuff should tell us something about the types and number of trees and other vegetation that you have planted or will be planting, and how good a job this does of screening your property from the residences. And I'd also like to know, and maybe you can show it on the survey as well, where are you draining your water to? Drainage is a big issue in this
Was
township.
already there, like,
there's a stormwater, drain that
Yes.
everything goes to. That was in existence when he bought the property.
And, okay, can you show that on your,
It
you
will
will
be
show
on
it.
the
Put it
site
on the
plan.
survey?
Should be on the survey.
But it will definitely be on the survey, but I
Okay.
think it might even be on the site plan that you have.
I don't know what direction the drainage goes from there. Does
It
it
should go
go to
towards the
the
front, right?
north, south, east, or
yeah,
west?
then they go
Towards
to
the south.
then it goes down to the street, to
It would drain towards the road.
Yes.
okay,
Has there been any discussion with the adjacent property owners at this point? Because obviously, if you decide and you move
Yeah.
forward, the property owners are going to specifically be notified.
Yep.
And they will be notified that this is a request to change the zoning.
Yep.
The fact that it has been there and it is operated doesn't guarantee that the zoning can be changed. But I understand why and how it happened in Mr. Mario's case that he went forward with the construction of the new building. But the property owners obviously will be notified that now we're talking about a change in zoning, which will, in a sense, will make the property, if it's approved, the zoning change would be approved. Then the property would operate legally. Right now, it's not operating legally because it's not an approved use under the agriculture zoning.
Yes, we have had some discussions.
And I know that's why you're here.
Yeah, we have had some discussions with neighbors and to be candid, that's how I think this whole situation came up. Is for several years, he operated without any complaint and any issue whatsoever. But a year ago or so, to his own admission, made the mistake of those forms that are outside, that store outside the back of the building. They gather concrete over time that dries on the forms, and it needs to
gotta be
be
whacked.
essentially banged off with a hammer, to get all of that concrete to fall off of the forms. He had never done that on site before, but last year made the mistake of not being busy and having a day to get that done and it being sort of desperate to get it done. And he did it on site. And at least one, if not two neighbors were not very happy hearing that constant banging on these forms, and they called the zoning office, and that's how this whole thing started. Since then, first of all, that will never happen again, and Mario recognizes his mistake there, and he went and approached the neighbors and apologized and assured them that it wouldn't happen again, and I guess tried to make nice with, knowing that he had probably made an error in judgment and allowing that to happen on the property.
It probably would be appropriate then, in terms of how the property is used and what's stored there, that describing the kinds of activities, which is what Joni has been addressing also, that being an activity that will not
Not be
occur.
permitted.
You don't have to go back and repeat
Yeah,
that it was something that happened unfortunately, but I'm saying that by putting it in the plan that it will not.
That will make your
occur.
neighbors happier.
I think it will make them happier to actually spell out that that kind of activity will not be happening.
Yeah, well, that'll be part of this whole process is the use going to be compatible within the neighborhood? Granted, it's been there, but that'll be a decision that if an application would come forward, that would be a decision that the zoning commission would be taking a look at.
For sure. Well, it's our hope that when it's, largely for storage and there's no activities happening on site, that
Mhm.
that the neighbors would be less concerned, but admittedly,
Yeah.
something more did happen last year, so.
Okay, so,
So
well,
just so you know, right across the road, there used to be a cement plant
Hmm.
and it was not nice. It was not a good thing to have in a
oh,
neighborhood.
right over here, she's talking
Yeah.
about.
Right.
But they
right
were
across the
making
road.
cement.
Yes.
They were.
Yeah,
So
that's a
spell
different-
out that you're not making it
No.
there.
Right,
Oh,
Include that.
that would be helpful.
Yeah. So, that limits right away the noise and the dust.
There's really no manufacturing occurring. There's no repair work occurring.
Nope.
It sounds like there's really no cleaning of the equipment that's there.
No,
That you do that on the site where you have just finished a job,
Right.
I'm gonna guess.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
What's
not
the-
accurate, but
yeah,
if
you
you're
don't,
not
you
doing
don't
it,
do a lot of cleaning of the forms on site, do you?
hmm.
yeah,
No,
Yeah.
I wash my trucks.
yeah.
Yeah,
You gotta wash.
A list of things you're not doing may be more important than the list of
things that you are.
Well,
doing. I get
Actually,
it.
you need both.
You need, but to satisfy some of the neighbors.
Yeah. You need
helpful. That's
you
good.
need what you are doing to satisfy us and you need what we're not doing to satisfy.
Your neighbors.
I got it.
And when you write this up, think about as if you could go back to 2019
Mhm.
and write the plan for what that building's gonna support, what the building that he built,
Mhm.
what is that gonna support, what activities are gonna take place, how are you gonna handle the runoff from the trucks that you're washing, how are you gonna handle storage of materials? Even though you're doing all that now, write it as if you're in the Wayback Machine back in 2019 and you're going to start doing this. And that will help us, I think, understand
Yes.
that plan better.
And I would add, think about it in the same sense, but think about it in the future sense.
Yeah.
That what is it that's going to be occurring on the property?
Right.
And if you anticipate that there's potential for any change forget about what's happening, think of it in the sense of, okay, what's happened? Don't just tell us it's going to be continuing. We need to know what it is that is occurring and what will be occurring in the future. Because it's the future that goes into this plan, not the past. And I think that suggestion that Louis was making about go back and think like if you were buying the property and now describe what you're going to do.
And if we can't know for sure certain what is going to occur in the future, he would have to understand that this is a planned district. So if he wants to start doing more stuff, he's going to have to come back and amend.
That's
that
it.
plan.
Right.
You-
It is possible
you're
to
exactly
amend, but you have
correct.
to
We've,
come
we've
back
had
here.
that conversation that, look, obviously we might not have a crystal ball if you want to start, doing something else on your property. This is a very specific commercial plan district that's going to limit you to what's in the four corners of this document. If you want to do more, if you want to start opening up something else on your property, you're going to have to get permission from the zoning folks
And
to do
there
that.
are the
We've been
standards
here
are,
and seen
Yeah.
people have to come in and amend
Yeah.
their development.
standards are
Yes.
there and they identified that it is possible to modify the plan. Now, and there's two levels of modification. There's a minor and a major. The minor being one that can happen as an administrative decision. Basically, the major, essentially, you go back and you go through the process again. And
And certainly your guys' comment about anyone who buys this property would have to understand they're limited to how it's.
What is
Somewhat,
actually in the
yeah.
plan?
It's in
Or they
print
have to
in
be
the
willing
plan.
to rezone the property. If someone wants to buy.
and
it for
that's
a
why,
different purpose, they're gonna need to understand that
right.
Yep.
we're dealing with that exact same issue now on a different thing where we have someone that bought a piece of property and it was specifically stated the hours of operation and someone needed to be on site or wasn't going to be on site and they came in, bought the property and changed the operation of the business. Well, that requires a change and that's.
Understood.
I'll be back.
Yeah,
Okay, I
and-
see you have, if I
ahead.
could just go down here to number 4, the utilities. It says there's sanitary sewer. Is that a septic system?
Yep.
So you do have a restroom in the building?
Yep.
Okay. That should probably also be shown on your survey.
Two,
Yes,
Two
well,
septics?
no, the two
No,
restaurants.
Two
Oh,
restaurants.
2 restrooms.
So is there,
under each of the items, Scott, where you basically are saying, making a statement, there's no new construction, and no new development as proposed. Think of that response being a description of what is there, but as though it didn't exist. And you're describing what it's
What is
going to be.
There.
you're back in 2019 and you're describing what is going to occur, what's going to happen. The plan is to have no more than 5 employees bringing their personal vehicles, swapping out with, getting into a truck, leaving during the hours of operation of,
Right.
that's,
Most of that is in here, but all of these details around where the drainage goes and
Yeah.
stormwater and, all of those, the landscaping, all of that was existing, so I didn't really call a lot of details out on those.
You do have like the hours, but I don't see any place where you list the maximum number of employees.
Well, if you have 6 trucks, I imagine you've got 6 drivers.
No, it's different kind of they have 2 boom trucks. You always have to have 1 spare.
Ah,
on the happen.
I see that times.
Then I have a one with a sling, a sling gravel. Yeah, I have to, when I do the foundation, sling stone inside the basement.
So there you have a spare on that.
That one's not.
How many personal cars are usually on your site during the day?
4.
Yeah, but we can spell that
Do
out,
that and you identify where that parking is, employee parking.
right?
And the
So-
other thing is that with 6 trucks and 2 Bobcats, I don't know if you use the Bobcats on site or you take the Bobcats.
No, to the
outside.
job, to the job.
How much more equipment could you store in the 5,600 square foot?
He's full.
It's full.
Okay. Because that's gonna be a consideration
He
too.
could use that back storage building that I
Mhm.
said is empty, it's small.
Yeah.
He could store some stuff in there. It's about the only place that he's not storing stuff now that he could possibly add more.
And
so
he's
you've got
got,
both buildings are full, pretty much.
and he's got overflow. I mean, he's storing some equipment for some building materials outside, some rebar, some.
The
Just
rebar.
the rebar and the form.
Yeah, but stuff more expensive, I put inside.
Good plan.
So employees that wouldn't be driving the trucks, helpers, et cetera, people that show up to help with the concrete and help pouring, they
On site.
show up at the site.
Go to the
They don't
job.
come to the
They
property.
don't come at all.
They don't ride along on the way.
Hmm.
Usually I bring the materials, so they are at the job.
Okay.
I know that you've got, in terms of, number 7, identified and you're saying seen attached. For whatever reason, Scott, that information has not been transmitted to us.
Okay.
And I think, if I recall correctly, I think I remember you were telling me at one point you had dropped it off to,
So there's.
Yeah,
there's
it's
this one.
it's a map that shows.
oh, it's just a map, okay, so
It
there's no
shows,
narrative describing
Yeah,
it?
Big Walnut Soccer Fields, Buckeye Restoration, Catch of the Day Fish Farm, and Highland South Elementary.
This is the map? that
I
you're
think that's
referring to? Okay, well, then we do have it.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
do, it's just.
I was
it's really hard
expecting
to
it
read.
to be some kind of a narrative description, but it's not.
gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, it just says see attached, but I could also add a narrative, that describes it.
Yeah, I mean, and for the corner it says untitled map and write a description of your map, but it doesn't have
Yeah.
either of those.
Right,
This
makes
is-
sense.
This is an aerial photo.
Yes, that's what it is. Well, it's you know, there's
There's
labels.
a few landmarks.
Well, these are labeled on here.
Yeah, right.
So when you're talking about uh, surrounding uses, probable uses of surrounding areas, a little bit of text about I mean, right across the road practically is a couple of other businesses. And isn't that Matt's business back there in the back behind what is it? Schmidt's?
No. That's all down on Fancher.
Oh, okay. So what are these?
There's an out of compliance dump truck storage.
Across the street.
Yeah, and we've
There
been
is
asking
another
them.
concrete storage located, or like someone who does the same thing as Mario does, I think off of Center, this one,
Mhm.
isn't it?
Yeah, Baker.
What is it called?
Yeah, Bakers.
Baker.
Yeah, it's pretty big, yeah.
We could, yeah, we
Yeah,
can add
putting
some
those sorts
detail
of
around.
things on there,
Huh?
so putting those sorts of things on there so that it doesn't look like it's really a completely residential area.
Mhm.
I mean, clearly those are other residences all around there.
But if
But there's
it's
some
if
other
it's a
stuff.
business that's operating out of compliance,
It's
Yeah.
hard
it's not
to,
helpful.
yeah, it's not helpful.
That
Hmm?
one, the dump truck business going forward.
The one on Center Village?
The one directly across the street?
It-
So
you
that
know,
that one,
Clearly, there's residences on Miller Paul that are on the
Yeah.
east side.
I remember, you know,
Everything else is pretty open and pretty, you know, he
There's
has
some residences on Center Village there.
there's a couple, yes.
if there was a business that's there that is operating legally, it either had to be grandfathered in because it existed prior to 1988 when zoning went in place, or there would be a zoning change that would authorize it. Otherwise, the businesses that you may have
Think are
seen
legal,
there,
yeah.
they may be operating outside of zoning as well. And I know for sure, as Jim just identified, there's one, and I didn't realize it was
Yeah, I didn't realize
in
it
its
was there.
vicinity,
This is
that it's going to court.
Yeah, I think there's several in the township. It's hard to say, you know, whether they're pre-existing or approved,
Yeah.
or whether they need to be rezoned to, or whether, you know,
Well,
challenging
there's,
sometimes to know.
There's been
Yes.
kind of a shift in terms of enforcement in that
Yes,
regard,
I've noticed that.
which is different from where it was in 2019.
Yes.
this entire thing.
Okay, proposed timetable or time schedule for development. There is no new construction being planned unless you are looking at potentially adding some additional screening for the neighbors.
And I think that will probably be in our proposal.
And
I
that,
mean, coming from this meeting, some of the things that I'm thinking, obviously some of the extra language, but in terms of any actual work to be done.
no, the
I think-
work wouldn't have been done. This is what's being proposed.
Yes, that's what I mean. Any
Yes.
work that would be being done to make this happen would probably focus on landscaping.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, but that's what I'm saying, and include that in terms of a description in the plan.
We'll talk about some additional, especially on the east side facing most of the residential properties. I think it's very well landscaped down the first half of the property, the second half of the rear of the.
Yeah, it
property-
just looks like that from the
Yeah,
drawing.
It's mostly
That
just
would be-
fencing after that, and you can pretty well see the back of some of those residents. I think it would be helpful to propose some screening. Even though, and I don't mean to sound cantankerous or whatever, even though nothing's really happening on the property, literally the trucks are just pulling into the garage and closing the doors and then leaving in the morning. So screening isn't really screening any activity, but I guess it could be screening just the visual of,
It can be a screen for the visual. It can be bit of a screen for the noise of trucks on gravel.
True, yeah, might be helpful.
It also would send the right message, if
I
you
agree.
will, to the neighbors.
And I wouldn't prejudge what the neighbors are gonna ask for. The
Right.
4 of us up here can have our point of view,
Right,
but we don't live next to the site,
understood.
and they could
Yeah.
have a whole different take on it.
But we do know the kinds of things that have brought complaints in the past for commercial districts, planned commercial districts. Noise,
Mario, I mean, honestly, Mario's committed to trying to be the
Um,
best neighbor he can
I
be.
try-
and-
I keep everything clean, I like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if the neighbors felt like there needs to be more screening and that was what they really wanted, I think he would be happy to provide that or want some hours adjusted or something different, I'm sure.
That could be tough.
It's a tougher call, you
Mhm.
know.
Because my concern would not only be the neighbors, but also the school traffic, because you're right around the corner from
Island Souders.
the Highland Souders. And your 4 trucks pulling out when the school buses.
I think they're always gone by then.
Yeah.
You leave at what
I'm not-
time in the morning?
Early.
Yeah, 7 o'clock. I never see the school bus.
Yeah,
I mean, I would.
I understand what you're saying.
but we could
I-
address
I would-
that.
I would try to
Yeah.
understand what the bus schedule is compared to what your
Okay.
trucking schedule
Good
is, so
idea.
that we don't run into huge
Yep, very
jams
good
or
idea.
even worse.
And Scott, I want to point this out so they don't forget to do it. Article 23 in our zoning resolution was adopted in March of 24, or well, March, April of 24. Those are the standards, or that is the standard, or the article of the zoning resolution under which we will be reviewing, assuming at this point that you would move forward with an application. So make a note about that article because you may or may not have paid any attention to this yet, since it's something new that was adopted within the past year.
Thank you.
And it's available online.
Yeah, Rick?
Anything else specifically that, Scott, that you may have a question about, or Mario? And
I
then,
don't think so, other than maybe just what happens next.
well, when you apply for the preliminary meeting, it potentially would include 2 meetings. So this would be the first meeting. If you want to work on drafting some changes that we've talked about tonight,
Yep,
and then use a second meeting to go through that, that's an option.
that would be ideal. That way I could get all of this together, try to respond to you guys have given me a lot of good information, so I think it would be helpful for us to go back and create exactly at least our best guess of what we need and come back and meet again and see if we've covered everything.
Yeah, because then that's still not an application. So there's no additional fees or anything that specifically would be required. But coming back and bringing an updated version, if you will, or revised version of your development plan might be productive.
Yes, for sure. And we may go ahead and invest in the survey because that might be helpful as well to show a lot of the details that you were mentioning. And have that as a part of the package and pretty much be ready to go, I think, at the next meeting. If you feel like we've covered everything, obviously you can't, vote on it until we have the hearing, but, at least we would know that you're satisfied that we've given you all the information.
Right. It's if some of the things that there might be and you have to look specifically at what the requirements are. There might indeed be some areas where there would be a divergence in the sense of it may require a paved driveway. And that would mean then potentially, because you're not, unless you were actually going to plan to do that,
be a
or a paved
divergence.
parking area, then it would be a divergence to use gravel, compacted gravel, that kind of thing. Take a look at, because you said, you know, in terms of, no new construction or development is being proposed, correct. But that doesn't necessarily mean that what's there would meet the standard of the zoning resolution.
Is it true as we apply for the, I mean, I guess when you, at least in other jurisdictions, when you do in this case, a planned commercial district, do you still have to submit a separate variance if you're asking for something that's?
No, that would be part of this plan, and if we approve it as a zoning commission,
That's what I assume.
yes, that would be the divergence that we would approve, and it
So
wouldn't
what
have
you
to
would
go.
like as a part of the text and a part of the application, is
Correct.
if there are some divergent things,
Right,
you would like to know, have those
What they
called
are.
out so that you're approving those
correct.
as a part of the planned commercial.
That's,
district.
you got it.
Because
Yes.
pavement and asphalt is required, and if you're not proposing to put pavement in, if you're proposing to leave it as gravel,
Mhm.
then that's a divergence.
Yes, I got you.
So that's the reason I wanted to point that particular one out. Now, when it comes to the one for, the bond, posting a bond, that may not be applicable.
Yeah.
And that saying not applicable may be acceptable for that kind of thing. You're not building a subdivision. And you're not building a number of other kind of commercial things where you have to put in streets or anything like that. So that's more what that bond is directed at, which you would know. Other comments or questions from commission members? Alan, how about you?
I don't know what you guys are talking about. We're pretty good at covering it.
So just
But
looking at,
having been in Westerville, you may have a different perspective.
Much different perspective. Yeah.
looking at the aerial photograph, I don't know the date that it was taken, but it was the middle of the day, leaf off condition. There's some evergreen trees that provide some screening, but if you look at the neighbors immediately to the east, the rear of their property backs up to the whole side. When they look out the back of their house, they have a pond. Looks like a couple of them have like fountains in their pond, and then immediately behind that is all the storage of stuff that's out behind that newer building that was built. So that to me, I think would be, if you're gonna look at screening, I think that would be a good place to start.
I agree.
And that was the area you were making some reference to, I think, when you were talking about looking at.
I mean, on the site plan, you can see, I mean, I think all along the driveway and then the mound that exists here. But
Right.
once you get to the rear of the property, it's really just a fence.
Mm-hmm.
Even that fence is not a privacy fence, it's a
Old
railed.
farm fence,
Is-
probably.
Yeah, and so I think, figuring out how we can, screen that.
Yeah.
Better would be
Is,
helpful.
is the area towards the northernmost part of the property, is that where the septic fields go?
Where-
Septic goes to the, close to the
Septic goes to the
The
front?
road.
then. That's way before, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But just as an example, Mario has a storage container, in the back of his property, but literally the owner immediately to the west also has a storage container. So I'm not as concerned about the
The west
screening
side.
on the west side as I am on the east side.
You might want to do a search on storage containers, because I think
Oh, I say again?
you might want to do a search through the zoning resolution for storage containers, because I think that might be a divergence.
Yep.
Whether it's residential or not.
That won't be allowed in, as temporary.
Yes, yeah, I think it's gotta be, I think you can get 14 days, maybe a month. And then. So if it's an important part of, if you've got stuff you need in the storage container. You gotta think about, is there room under roof? In your existing building?
Right. Or would we request it as a divergent?
And then. That raises its own issues, because it's a divergence rather than just, it's approved, it's permitted, no questions.
Now, if we get to the point where we're having an actual hearing to determine whether or not this rezoning is gonna occur, and there's a couple of issues about different divergences, and one of them you don't approve of, can you still rezone the property without that? So for example, if we were requesting to allow a storage container to remain, and you determined that you weren't going to approve that divergence, could you still approve the zoning with the contingency that the storage unit goes away, or how would that work?
I think that that would be the terms of the planned commercial district would be no outside storage or no storage containers on site. And that we would approve it that way. You wouldn't be able to leave it there.
Right. Okay,
So it's
Now-
not necessarily an all or nothing.
No,
that's what I'm asking.
It's a negotiated,
Yeah, when we get to the point where we're asking for the rezoning along with these exceptions,
Mhm.
if one or two of them you don't approve of, can we just take those out and still get the rezoning?
Because the planned commercial district, that is the zoning for that parcel.
Exactly.
So yes or no, it depends on how we write it
Right.
up.
Okay.
And if it's a deal breaker for you, then that's another consideration.
Yep.
It would be possible, during the hearing, if there is an issue that is addressed, that's a problem, that the hearing could be potentially recessed to give you the opportunity to address it.
I could
And
update
then
the
it would-
development
it wouldn't-
plan or
There would be
whatever.
no decision made
Right.
at that particular time, but there would be a recess time identified, date and time certain, so that you'd come back with whatever was the issue.
Yep.
Resolved, or if we would move it forward, then we don't move it forward with contingencies.
The other thing I would suggest is that, I saw an article and they just dump them on you, but one of the Ohio departments, I think of development, put out a map today or yesterday showing the population change in Ohio county by county. And probably 70 out of the 88 counties are all going down in population. But what you see is Delaware County expects to increase population over 50% in the next 20 years, 25 years. No surprise to you. It's going to have an impact on Mario's business. If you're looking at that kind of increase, then there's going to be a huge demand for somebody who does concrete forms. Is this location, without being able to expand and put new buildings on site, is that going to be in his long-term?
We've discussed that, and originally, when we talked about this parcel, there's obviously room for an additional building. But we discussed that, this path that we're taking is not going to allow for that. Doesn't necessarily mean you can't come back at a later point in time and propose that.
Correct.
But it would require a
Whole new change.
whole new change, and
And
I
that would
agree
end
with
up-
you. That's that's something he has to understand.
And is it better now to look at at 5-10 years down? You talk to your clients.
The answer would be yes, but we're concerned about, if we're the neighbors and sort of the unexpectedness of what we could or couldn't do down the road gives us some heartburn.
Yeah.
Over how people might react to an expanded use on this property beyond what's already there.
Especially when it's surrounded by
Yes.
mostly residential.
And I think Mario, and I've talked about it, he's probably better off getting this sanctioned, getting it where we need to be. And if over the next few years, business starts growing to a point where he needs a bigger facility or a different facility, he may have to sell this parcel and move somewhere else, knowing that whoever buys it is going to have to rezone it for whatever purpose they want to use it for, unless they're doing the same thing.
Unless they're doing what is described in the
Exactly.
plan.
Right.
And so to really chew into that possibility seriously and say, is this the best way to go for the next 5 or 10 years, and talk to your customers.
Yeah.
What are their plans? You look at, how much are they going to call on you for setting forms?
And how long more does he want to keep doing this, right, Mike? We're not all getting any
I have
younger.
6 kids, so.
Yes.
You're gonna be doing it for a while.
So if that's the case, then you really want to seriously think about, is this the best place to set your roots now permanently? Or do you need a bigger spot or a spot which is more conducive to heavy industrial work?
Understood.
And there are areas on the northern edge of the township now, because of the overlay districts that we've recently put in place, that are conducive to that. You wouldn't have a fight. And you might be able to trade one parcel for another and just walk away.
Something to think about.
Any other questions, comments? My last thing then would be to say, Scott, looking at the future in terms of, we talked about your coming back. Do you want to look at potentially how long into the future do you want that to be? 1 month, 2 months?
I think, I mean, just based on what I know about how long it takes to get a survey scheduled these days, I think I'm gonna need the 2 months more than 1 month.
Okay,
I think you're probably 4 to 6 weeks out of getting a surveyor out to actually
Yeah.
survey the property properly and.
well, we don't necessarily have to set the time, date and time now, but if we, when we want to do it, I'm just asking that so that
Yeah,
giving you the leeway
yeah, thank you.
that it would be permissible
Yeah.
to do it that way.
Great.
So you could then get back, contact me with regard to scheduling, and
Yep.
you can go through Mike,
Yep.
through the zoning office.
Yep.
Be probably the easiest way to do with Ashley being on duty there.
Yep.
And indicate that you have that request, and then we'll look at the calendar and get it back to you, because I would discuss it with the zoning commission at one of the meetings.
Great.
Okay,
Yes, that's great.
all right.
Thank you for all of your assistance. Very helpful.
Thank you for your willingness to listen.
I'm glad that we're, on the same page here in terms of moving this process forward, because initially there was some confusion.
I think a little bit, but I think we have it now.
Yeah, I agree. All right.
Thanks.
Um,
You guys have a
any
great
other
evening.
issues or questions from the commission? Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Where's
Motion to
Bridget,
adjourn.
we need her.
All right, that was moved by Louis and seconded by Tom.
Yep.
And we are adjourning at, well, we're not adjourned yet, but at
8:36.
approximately 8:36. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we're adjourned.
Thank you.
8:36, just locked in, go forward.
FYI,
Good night.
Gotcha.
there was never anyone else that joined the.
No one ever joined us. Thank you
Not
for,
surprising.
You guys
I-
have another
I forgot to
strategic
check a
plan
second
coming up?
time, but
You guys have another strategic plan coming up? Maybe? Is there another
Yeah, February 8th,
couple weeks or next week?
February 8th is a Saturday, I believe.
the Saturday meeting,
Yeah,
yeah, that's Saturday the 8th.
Saturday the 8th.
And it's over at the Grange Hall
Oh, okay.
on Center Village Road.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Take care. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Good night. And thanks, Louis. You can shut her down now.